My name is Nathan. The night my wife left our family, my daughter asked me why Mom didn't love us anymore.
My name is Nathan. The night my wife left us, my daughter stood beside me at the front door and asked a question I still remember. Dad, why doesn't Mom love us anymore? I looked at Olivia. She was standing there with a suitcase in her hand. Across the street, a black car was waiting. Victor was sitting behind the wheel. For 6 years, he had been Olivia's business partner. For the last 8 months, I had suspected he was something more. Olivia looked at me. I've made my choice. That was all she said. I expected myself to explode. Instead, I just nodded. She seemed almost disappointed that I didn't fight. She wanted me to beg. Maybe she wanted to feel that leaving me had been difficult. But there was something she didn't know. I already knew where she was going, and I knew what Victor was really after. I had known for weeks. I just never told her. Olivia and I had been married for 11 years. We had 2 children, a comfortable house, and the kind of routine people usually mistake for certainty. Breakfast together, school runs, weekend errands, arguments about bills. Then slowly things started changing. Olivia became protective of her phone. She started taking business calls outside. Her trips became more frequent, and she began coming home wearing perfume I had never smelled on her before. Whenever I asked what was going on, she gave me the same answer. Nothing. I'm just stressed. I wanted to believe her. For a while I did. Then one evening, I saw her outside her office with Victor. He was holding a folder. She got into his car. I followed them. They stopped at a restaurant across town. Through the window, I watched Victor reach across the table and touch her hand. Olivia didn't move it. That was enough to tell me there was something between them. But the next thing I found bothered me even more. It had nothing to do with romance. I checked the business accounts. Large amounts of money had been moving out over several months. The payments weren't going directly to Victor. They were being routed through companies I didn't recognize. I started looking into those companies. All of them had one connection. Victor. That was when I stopped thinking about the affair. I started thinking about the money. I hired an independent accountant without telling Olivia. The report came back a week later. There were missing funds, suspicious transfers, and something I hadn't expected. A property transfer had been prepared using my authorization. I had never approved it. Someone had forged my signature. The signature looked convincing at first, but I recognized the document it had been copied from. It was an old contract from 7 years earlier. The original had never been scanned or shared electronically. Only a handful of people had ever seen it. Olivia was one of them. I sat alone in my office that night staring at the papers. The affair suddenly made sense. Victor wasn't building a future with my wife. He was building a way into my family's assets, and Olivia was helping him. Whether she knew the full plan or not, I couldn't tell. So I didn't confront her. I needed certainty first. I created a fake document. It claimed that I was preparing to move our remaining assets into a private trust. I told only my attorney about it. Olivia knew nothing about the plan. Or at least that's what she thought. 2 days later, Victor contacted a broker about the exact transaction described in the fake document. He had taken the bait. That was the moment I knew. 3 days later, Olivia packed her suitcase. She stood at the front door while our daughter watched from the hallway. "You're not going to stop me?" Olivia asked. I looked at her. "No." Her expression changed. "That's it?" I nodded. She waited for something else. An argument. A plea. Maybe tears. But I had nothing left to give her. She walked toward the car. Before she opened the door, she turned around. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I almost laughed. Harder? She was leaving our children for another man while believing she was walking toward a better life. I simply said, "You've already made your choice." Then she left. I watched Victor's car disappear at the end of the street. My daughter came and stood beside me. "Is Mom coming back?" I swallowed. "I don't know." That was the only honest answer I could give her. 3 days later, Victor's world started falling apart. The suspicious accounts were frozen. The property transfer was stopped. The forged documents were turned over to investigators. Then my phone rang. It was Olivia. Her voice was different. She sounded frightened. "Did you know?" I didn't answer immediately. "Did you know what Victor was doing?" "Yes." There was silence. Then she started crying. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked out the window, because I had asked myself that question many times. Finally, I said, "Because you wouldn't have believed me." She didn't argue. Maybe she knew I was right. "I loved him," she whispered. "I know. I thought he loved me. He loved what you could give him." She went quiet. Then she asked something that surprised me. "Why didn't you fight for me?" I stared at the empty chair across from me. "Because you weren't being taken from me." I paused. "You were leaving." Olivia eventually cooperated with the investigation. Victor faced the consequences of what he had done. Our marriage ended without the kind of dramatic scene people expect from stories like this. There was no screaming, no revenge campaign, just lawyers, paperwork, and two people realizing that something they once called a marriage had already ended. Months later, Olivia asked to meet me. She looked tired, older somehow. "I thought you hated me," she said. "I did." She looked down. "But I don't anymore." "Why?" I thought about it for a moment. "Because hatred still gives someone a place in your life." She looked at me. "I want to fix things." I shook my head. "You can't fix something after you've decided it was worth breaking." She started crying. I didn't. Not because I didn't care, because I had already spent enough time caring about someone who had stopped caring about what she was doing to us. For months, I thought Olivia had chosen Victor over our family.
Maybe she had.
But eventually, I understood something more painful. She hadn't simply chosen another man. She had chosen a version of her life where she believed betrayal would make everything better. When that fantasy collapsed, she wanted to return to the life she had walked away from. But I couldn't go back. My children still needed me. And I needed to become someone who could look them in the eyes without pretending anymore. I never told Olivia everything I knew. I didn't need to. She eventually learned enough from the evidence to understand what had happened, and perhaps that was the hardest part for her. She had spent months believing she was leaving me behind. She never realized that long before she walked out that door. I had already let her go.